My mother tells me this little family secret, but she prefaces it by saying, you know, I want you to always respect the man that I was married to at the time, and I really don't want you to have any hurt. I don't want you to have any feelings of loss, that you were born and conceived of love, and you know, I didn't go back and tell him about you, but I just want you to know you were conceived of love. And it was really a very it was very liberating for her to have done that and for her to raise me that way. And I will tell you that I spent the next 21 years feeling very good about myself. A lot of very important things were cleared up for me. I never really understood why I always felt more comfortable with my hair in braids as opposed to relaxed and out. I never really got that. But a lot of things came together. And then late last year, so for the next 21 years, I did what I would call low-level searches, because I had his name, I had, you know, his profession, I knew he was a doctor. I had the wrong country, but I just knew little things about him. I made some phone calls, I did some internet searches, and I never turned up anything. And so late last year, I really had to reconcile and come to the conclusion that I would never find my father. And so I wrote this to kind of put myself at peace. It's called Where's My Daddy? Now that I told the story I wasn't sure I would tell, let me tell you all how it turned out well. My mother eventually told her husband what happened that night. Yes, Allison was conceived after that New Year's Eve fight. Needless to say, the following years were difficult for him to love a child that he really didn't bring. He made a choice to raise me as his daughter, and we had many days filled with joy and laughter. His position today doesn't really matter to me. What's done is done, and now it's out for the world to see. I wasn't abused or mistreated. He did the best that he could do. In spite of his denial, I owe him a great big thank you. During those years, he tried his best to be impartial and fair to both of his daughters, show his love and care. But somehow it just never felt right. I didn't ever quite feel like an equal in his sight. I developed a deep need to be daddy's little girl, so I sought academic achievement to find my place in this world. That drive led me to become a model student and a scholar's scholar. I chose a profession that makes sense and pays me dollars. I served my community as a radio and TV personality where people commented on my powerful speaking ability. My goals were checked off one at a time, and life was good. Everything was fine. Being a loving and faithful spouse came easy to me because I transferred all of my emotional energy into being the world's best wife and supermom, never realizing where that motivation was coming from. That deep-seated need to be daddy's little girl remained at the center of my subconscious world. For the purpose of speaking my piece here, it suffices to say that I had to overcome my fear of being alone without anyone to take care of me. And in this lesson, I could finally see my daddy had really been there all along. He showed me in lots of ways, especially in songs. God had been holding me in the palm of his hand. Finally, I looked back and I saw his footprints in the sand. In this moment of knowing, it finally hit me that my father had always been everything I needed him to be. My solid rock, my provider, my broad shoulders, my all. The outstanding lesson was for me to get on my knees and call. I cried, I prayed, I thanked him for opening my eyes, for ending my search and helping me to be wise about who my real daddy is, about what he does and what it means to be his. I'm hoping that you all hearing my daddy's story will help all of y'all to find our Father in all of his glory. And I was very comfortable and at peace with this. I had put it at rest, and I was good with it. And then, of course, 2 weeks ago, like many of you, I happened to be watching the Oprah show, and I happened to be seeing Patricia find her sister Oprah. And I'm sitting there watching, and I'm thinking, what a beautiful feeling that must be. What an absolutely remarkable feeling that must be. And I sat there in that moment saying, I will find my father, because I want that moment too. And then the following Sunday, last Sunday, was Pastor Wilson's sermon, Your Glory is in Your Story. Ooh. Your glory is in your story. It's now 21 years later. I thought that this story was over after that last big aha, but this next chapter is going to drop your jaw. When I tell you about the power of the God we serve, you may not believe how my life's journey has taken a curve. Just when I found peace with never knowing my real dad, Oprah does a show about a sister she never knew she had. I sat there thinking how wonderful that feeling must be when part of your soul reunites with your body. I made a silent decision that I will find him, but it took another 7 days before I did anything. That next Sunday, in church, Pastor Willie Wilson was dropping his normal history and wisdom. His sermon was called, "Your Glory is in Your Story." And I sat there thinking he must be talking to me. After the service, I went to him and asked for his help. After the service, I went to ask for his help to find a father who didn't know he left a child behind. As a good pastor should, he said he would give it his all. He knew a few people in Ghana that he could call. That evening, I went back to Google to do a search for a father who probably knew nothing of my birth. And on this day, like none other before, the World Wide Web opened and led me to the door. With corrected spelling and an anointed touch, one click of a mouse opened up so much. I found a dozen relatives with my father's name. The gift of knowing told me that we were all the same. Using the new spelling and the power of Facebook, I found 8 potential relatives who all happened to look a lot like me in an unbelievable way. Some gorgeous sisters and handsome brothers, I might say. I reached out to each of them with a vague sounding note. Samantha was the first to respond, and this is what she wrote. He was my uncle. He and my father were brothers. And that was such a moment I wish I could share with my mother. I realized that God had led me after all these years to find my father and dry away my tears. After 21 years of looking and wondering, in 7 days, God cleared up everything. He led me to him and then to my father. So I will never forget to lay my burdens at the altar. You see, God has no watch. He has no calendar and no computer. But when God says your wait is over, it is truly over. I'm a behavioral scientist, and I had to trace the formula to see exactly how this miracle happened to me. A few things had to fall in place for this incredible revelation. I had to forgive, I had to believe, I had to decide, and then take action. I have always considered finding him to be an impossible task. It never occurred to me. All I had to do was to believe and to ask. When I saw the joy of Patricia finding her sister, I decided in that moment that I would join her. The next step was to do something to move away the resistance, and that's why I had to come and ask Pastor for assistance. It feels like this act was the last piece of the plan, because within 24 hours, I found the long-lost members of my clan. I'm always touched by the song, God is Able, because praise is about so much more than the food on our table. Sometimes we sit waiting for God to fill our cup. Meanwhile, God is waiting for each of us to wake up, to get the aha, the thing we most need to know, so he can move forward and help us to grow into everything he wants us to be, to manifest, to experience, and to have miracles to see. My gratitude now is about this awesome gift that he gave to me, and it's for the love and the welcoming of another side of my family. I want this to be proof that miracles are possible for you. Increase your belief, ask for the lesson and the action you should do. And if you are laboring with a void to fill, remember the story of how I found my father, the late Dr. Harry Sunkwa-Mills.